Well, hey team, how we doing? You doing all right? Oh, I'm so glad to be back with you guys again. I'm just loving this so much. How many of you went horseback riding today? I just feel inspired seeing you guys out there horseback riding. How many of you have been enjoying the short films? I've been loving them. So good. Anybody else wondering if the two of them end up together? Like, it's just all, I love the film, and I don't want to distract, but I'm just like, just kiss her already. Like, come on, like, just me though? Just me? No. I grew up in a city called Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. You ever heard of Port Coquitlam before? Oh, shout out Port Coquitlam. Poco. You know. Wow. So I grew up in Port Coquitlam. Port Coquitlam is famous for a few things. The number one thing it's famous for is we have like a hometown hero. His name's Terry Fox. Anyone ever heard Terry Fox before? Yeah. I mean, if there's ever a hero worth celebrating, it's Terry Fox. I mean, I absolutely love Terry Fox. I mean, he's the real deal. I remember in grade 12, my friends and I from school, we decided we were going to do the Terry Fox run, okay? And not just the school run, we were going to do the Sunday morning run, like that, the full 10 kilometers. So we all made t-shirts together, and we had like headbands on, and we lined up in the front, and it's the hometown run, so there's just a lot of media there. Terry Fox's family's there. It's amazing. And I remember that year, my friends and I, we were on the front page of the local paper, and my mom thought that was a very, very big deal. I think she still has the clipping. Anyways, so I didn't think about what it might take to, run 10 kilometers, so we just went for it, and I went just so fast off the top, and I'm just sprinting. I'm just sprinting as fast as possible. And there's tons of people there cheering us on, right? Like there's all these different people from different schools there throwing you water at the beginning. There's signs and throwing high fives. I'm just loving it so much, and so I'm giving high fives. And we get like a 750 meters into the thing, and all of a sudden I get this pain right here. Do you know what it's like? Some people call it a stitch, a cramp, and they say if you put your hand up here, it stops. I'm trying to run like this, and I'm like, it's not working. It's not working. Then there's this like lactic acid buildup all through my legs, and I'm exhausted. And then we run past, like just the way the route was, we just run right past my friend Andrew's house. And so we had this kind of moment of like, should we just go in there? And so we did, and we made a pizza. And don't cheer for that. And so we go out the back door. And then we just walk to the end of the I think we made really great time, actually, because the way the route worked, we just walked out the back door to the finish line and did the whole thing in like 45 minutes and ate a pizza in the middle. I mean, it was just remarkable. And so like 10 years later from this time, I do the same Terry Fox run again. But this time it's way different because of the story I was sharing this morning about my brother Kevin. So what's really cool about the Terry Fox run is everyone gets to wear a shirt. Like if you register, you get a shirt. But anyone who's a cancer survivor gets a red shirt. And so Kevin's there, and he's got his red shirt on. And I'm just so proud to see my brother Kev wearing this red shirt. And he's been training for this for a while, and I hadn't done any training. And I remember running in that same place when we passed Andrew's old house. I was exhausted. Tried the hand in the air thing, it didn't help. Still cramped, so tired. But this time I didn't quit because out in front of me I could see Kevin's red shirt. And for some reason, I just couldn't stomach the idea of quitting knowing that Kevin wasn't quitting. Like I just knew that I had more in the tank than I thought I did, so I didn't quit. And looking out in front of me, seeing this red shirt almost became this like picture for me of perseverance. Like Kevin in this whole season of his life through radiation and chemotherapy and just trying to revolutionize his life to go towards health, and then him training for that day and then being out there that day. I ran the whole 10 kilometers. I didn't make a good time. Kevin finished like minutes in front of me. So this is a guy who's just spent the last year on chemotherapy, way faster than I am. But there's something just profound about this idea of perseverance. So I want to talk about perseverance tonight because perseverance it's carrying on with something, like pushing through something in the midst of obstacles and setbacks. And like perseverance starts the moment you want to quit. You know what I mean? Like the moment, like it's not perseverance when it's easy. It's perseverance. Like perseverance is pushing through obstacles and setbacks and carrying on through it. And perseverance starts when? When you want to quit. And I remember in that moment just wanting to quit and thinking, man, how many times and I think about even Terry Fox, and I love Terry Fox so much because you see this incredible footage of him. At the beginning of the race, there was hardly anybody there, but he's running every day, a full marathon on one leg across Canada. Every day a marathon. And he would come into cities and there'd be thousands of people there cheering him on. Can you imagine the energy he'd feel when he came into a city? Imagine running through a room like this, everybody cheering for you. But then there's this footage, and I'm so struck by this footage. There's this footage of him at night when there's no one else around. And it's wet, and it's cold. And he's in pain, and he continues to run. I wonder how many nights, because most nights it was just him and one guy that drove the van with him, his buddy. And his buddy was a Christian, do you know that? And I love this friend, the friend that says, I'll drive the van with you the whole way. And I remember how many nights they kind of wondered, man, I could just jump in that van and nobody would know. Perseverance. Perseverance. Christianity takes perseverance. Perseverance is really unappealing in the world we live in because we live in the age of comfort. Like everything around you, every marketing piece you ever see is telling you to take away anything that causes pain, to remove anything that's an obstacle, and just be comfortable at all times. And here, the interesting thing, nothing great in life comes without some measure of perseverance. All of the best things in this life come through perseverance. And Christianity, it's interesting. Remember I told you first night I was going to be honest with you guys? I told you I was going to be honest. I was going to tell the truth. And I don't want to pitch you a version of Christianity that just says, if you follow Jesus, everything will be easy. In fact, I would argue that if you decide to follow Jesus with your life, and I'm speaking to those you say, I'm not a Christian. If you decide to follow Jesus, and I'm also talking to those that you are a Christian, but you're not following him with your life. If you decide to follow Jesus with your life, it's not going to get easier, it's going to get harder. Your life will have more joy, more fullness of life, more hope. You will feel connected to your Maker. You will feel alive. And it will be full of love and hope and joy. It is full life, but it's not easy. And I feel like at a young age, I was pitched a version of Christianity that was going to be easy. And all I've experienced over the years is something that's not easy at all. It's hard. I want to just read you a text from my friend Jazzy. Jazzy was actually here last year with Kim Moran. Some of you guys remember her. And Jazzy's a good friend. Jaden is a good friend of mine. Jaden's here. He's the youth pastor at our church. And Jaden, am I right that you were one of the friends from high school? She wasn't a follower of Jesus, and you invited her to come to church, and you shared your faith with her. So Jaden knew Jazzy in high school. She wasn't a Christian. And Jaden went to high school with her in Abbotsford and invited her to come to church and shared his faith with her. And she made a decision at one of our youth conferences to follow Jesus with her life. And I just texted her just to ask her a few questions about it. Can I read it to you? Is that all right? So this is what she said. She said, the number one thing that stood out to me about the message of Jesus was the fact that he loves me so much despite my past. I used to think I had to earn God's love. My past religion taught me that I had to do certain things, act a certain way, eat certain things in order for God to accept me. But Christianity taught me that I didn't have to do any of those things to be accepted by him. I thought the only way to God was religion, but it's actually through relationship with Jesus. As I understood what it meant to have a relationship with him, that helped me let go of a lot of things like swearing and drinking and drugs and the approval of others. I didn't let go. Check this out. This is so wise. She's so profound. She goes, I didn't let go of those things because if I didn't, God wouldn't love me. But I let go of them because I know God loves me and wants what's best for me. Amazing. Listen to this, though. She says, the first year of following Jesus was both beautiful and messy. I knew following Jesus meant that there was going to be a cost, and I knew that cost was my family. And then when I actually had to tell them and got rejected, it was so difficult. Let me just pause for a second. So here's what's going on here in the story. Jazzy came from a family whose parents didn't follow Jesus. And for them, it was deeply threatening, the idea that she would become a Christian. And so she knew that following Jesus might mean being rejected from her family. And then what happened for Jazzy in her first year of following Jesus is she was kicked out of her house for following Jesus. And I remember the family in our church that said, you can come and live with us. And I remember the people in our youth ministry coming around her and supporting her and encouraging her. But listen what she said. It was difficult, but it was so worth it. I realized in that moment that it doesn't matter what obedience might cost you, because the reward in obeying is so much better. I lost my family for a season, but I grew closer to Jesus, and I knew one day I'd be able to use my story to help others when they go through a similar situation. You got to hear this next line. My prize is Jesus for going through all I did with my family, and to me it made it all worth it. I was a little shook, of course, but I chose to view it as a blessing because in hardships, we get to choose if we want to run to Jesus or away from him. I'm glad I persevered and chose to run to Jesus because as I still face trials today, although many not as intense as leaving my family, the spiritual discipline to run to Jesus is always there. I hope this helps. Then I said, thanks so much. You should be speaking tonight instead of me. She said, ha. It says the narrow there. I've been thinking about this idea of the narrow. Jesus spoke about the idea of the narrow way versus the wide way. And the narrow way is not the easiest path, but it's the best path. And in this moment, like again for Jazzy, the decision to go the narrow way was a very narrow way. Like it was going to cost her something to follow the way of Jesus. And she says, it was so worth it because my prize was Jesus. And this language of perseverance that Jazzy used, this is language we see all through the New Testament. So in the New Testament, we've got a few things going on. First books in the New Testament are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're called the Gospels, and they're all about the life of Jesus. We got 4 different people, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, telling their experiences and the research they did, what they knew about Jesus. It was like they wanted to tell the story about Jesus to specific people that they understand. And then we have the book of Acts, which is kind of the first years of the early church. It's an amazing read. And then most of the rest of the New Testament is actually letters that people wrote to each other. Like letters that like the first Christians would write to the young Christians as they were learning what it meant to follow Jesus. And most of the letters were written by a guy called Paul, but all the letters have the same sort of tone in some ways. You find them saying over and over again things like, don't give up, keep on going, push through resistance, don't quit, carry on, run the race, fight the fight. Why do you think the first Christians had to write this so often to one another? Why? Because it was hard to follow Jesus in the first century. And it was hard to follow Jesus in the second century and the third century, and it's hard to follow Jesus today. Some of us have been lulled to sleep by a narrative, a version of Christianity that is nothing like Christianity at all, that's an easy way that kind of fits in with the culture around us. But to actually follow the narrow way requires perseverance. In one of these letters in Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 to 9, Paul says this. Let me read verse 9 first. And then I'm going to read verses 7 and 8 because I think it's really insightful what he's doing here. Verse 9 says this, let us not become weary in doing good. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. I mean, that's such an encouraging word. Man, if that's all you hear in the message tonight, you've got the point. Don't give up in doing good. Hey, don't give up. Some of you came this weekend because you're like, man, I just need to be recharged in my faith. Or some of you guys are just in the middle of something in life and you just feel like throwing in the towel and quitting. And my message for you tonight, and what Paul was saying to the first Christians, and maybe the Spirit would say to you tonight, is don't give up in doing good. For at just the right time, you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. What does he mean by reap a harvest? He's talking about like eventually the seed is going to bear fruit. Eventually there's going to be growth. You might not see it now, but don't give up. Guys, don't give up. Don't give up in loving others. Don't give up in loving Jesus. Don't give up on pursuing purity and righteousness in your generation. Don't give up. But check the verses that come before. Listen to what he says, and you need to track with me for a second here. He says this, verse 7, don't be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. So he's using this kind of like planting language. Like whatever you sow into the ground is what kind of fruit's going to come up. So he says this in verse 8, very obviously. So he says, so whoever sows to please the flesh, and by flesh he means kind of the part of us, he's not talking about our body. He's talking about the part of us that's not in keeping with the way of God. So he's like, whoever sows to like please the desires that would put yourself over others, or whoever sows to please the desires that would go against the trajectory of God's will for your life, whoever would not go the narrow way but choose the wide way, whoever sows to please the flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. But whoever sows to please the Spirit And what he means by the Spirit is the way of Jesus, the work of the Spirit in your life, the things that God would have you do. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. And then he says, so don't give up in doing good, for at just the right time you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. Why is he saying that after that? Like, why is he saying don't give up in doing good after he gave this whole speech about a man reaps what he sows? If you sow to please the flesh, from the flesh you'll reap destruction. If you sow to please the Spirit, from the Spirit you'll reap life. Don't give up in doing good. Here's why. Because for some of them, in this time, they're thinking, okay, Paul, I hear what you're saying. I know I'm meant to sow to please the Spirit. But you're saying that if I sow to please the Spirit, I'm going to reap life. But I'm looking around, and I see a lot of people going the opposite direction of Jesus, and it seems like they're getting ahead while I get behind. Have you ever felt that way before? Like, God, I hear what you're saying, that like I'm meant to follow the narrow way, and that's going to lead to life. But I'm looking around, and I'm seeing a lot of people going the wide way, and it seems like they're getting ahead. They're achieving more. Like, you know what you might see on TV, like a late night preacher say that if you follow God, you're going to get rich. And like, you might have heard this before, like, man, if you honor God in your business, he's going to bless your business. I believe on some level that's true, but sometimes it's going to look a lot like being honest is going to mean that somebody else is going to get the contract. Somebody else is going to get the bid. Somebody else is going to get the deal. Somebody else is going to get first place. Sometimes doing it the way of God means you don't get first place. Sometimes the blessing doesn't show up in the way that we want it. And so Paul says, I know it might feel this way, like everybody else is getting ahead while you're falling behind. So don't give up. Don't give up in doing good. Can you imagine for Jazzy? Okay, I'm going to follow you, Jesus. First thing that happens, kicked out of her house. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap life. Whoever sows to please the flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. And she goes, God, I'm trying to sow to please the Spirit, and my life is falling apart. And so Paul would say, Jazzy, don't give up in doing good. At just the right time, you're going to reap a harvest if you don't give up. And I don't know what area of your life requires perseverance right now, but don't give up. There's more in the tank. When you feel like throwing in the towel, you're 750 meters into the race, there is a marker out in front of you. I love that my brother was wearing a red shirt because the writer of Hebrews talks about a different sort of red shirt out in front of us. Like the writer of Hebrews says, run the race marked out for you, and do this by fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. And when we fix our eyes on Jesus, he calls our attention to the cross, where his skin was stained red by his blood. That we serve a God who persevered that we may have life. And the writer of Hebrews says, take a look at that when you feel like throwing in the towel. Because the only race that you couldn't finish, he finished for you. There is a race that you couldn't finish. You couldn't run hard enough. You couldn't try hard enough to get to God. So he says, he ran enough for you. Fix your eyes on him. See the marker out in front of you and don't give up. And so I came to say one thing tonight. Don't give up. The narrow path will feel like perseverance. And perseverance starts when you want to throw in the towel. So here's all I want to do very simply tonight. I just want to look at 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4, depending on how much time we've got, different areas in our walk with God that we might need perseverance. And again, this isn't every area. It's just a few areas. I thought maybe if I could help show you how this plays out, we get a picture of what this might mean. So the first area is this. As followers of Jesus, perseverance, we need to persevere in the face of temptation. What's temptation? Temptation is that moment when something is in front of you. And that can be like an image on a screen, that can be a person, that can be a substance, that can be a gossiping conversation, that you've got some juicy meat to go in, and everything inside of you wants to go after that thing. Temptation. Man, to stand against temptation requires perseverance. Let me illustrate this with just something in my life that I struggle with a little bit, and it's eating cookies. Now, here's my problem with cookies, is I eat all of them. It's like, it's like all of the ones that are there, if they're chocolate chip, I eat. Does that make sense? Now, I don't want to treat you guys like I think you're really smart. I just want to illustrate this point fully. And you know I'm not just talking about cookies, right? Like you get it's a metaphor? Good. Right now, I'm not struggling with temptation when it comes to cookies. Because they're not here. I'm talking to you guys. Like right now, you don't need perseverance in the face of temptation when it comes to cookies. I don't. You might if you've got some in your pocket or you pack some tater tots or something like that. Just, I don't know. But when does perseverance start? When the moment it gets difficult. And for us to persevere in the face of temptation, that means that when everything inside of you wants to do that thing, you run the other way. That actually following the way of God will feel like tough decisions. It will feel like turning off the screen. It will feel like deleting that phone number. It will feel like going without. It will feel like that. And we need to almost be ready. Like tonight, after this session, you will have a moment where you've got some measure of privacy. You might be staying with a group of people, but you've got privacy with your phone, and it's going to feel like everything inside of you wants to do the thing that you do every night, which is go to that same Instagram page, or go to that same website, or do the same thing, text the same guy, or whatever it might be. And perseverance looks like, man, I got to turn this thing off. I've got to get it. It starts tonight. Monday morning when you go back, perseverance. I mean, I know I want to tell you it's going to be easy. And you might say, God, just take away all these desires. That's not how it works. It's going to feel a lot like perseverance. You're not alone. I'm not saying it's all on your own strength. Fix your eyes on Jesus. But I want you to know that it's going to feel a lot like effort. It's going to feel a lot like effort. My friend Tyler got really tripped up in pornography in his late teen years. And what's interesting is the thing that kind of like sparked it for him was he had a breakup with his girlfriend. And this is kind of the lie about pornography is some people say, oh, it's just like, oh, you're just like, it's just icky or whatever. No, that's not what's going on. This is about your heart. Like for Tyler, it was like his heart was broken, and somehow this kind of was like a temporary, like it somehow temporarily helped that pain. And so he got really tripped up in it, and then he was hanging out with some buddies one night, and they're having a fire together in his backyard, and they decided, let's all pray for each other. So they started praying for Tyler. And in the middle of them praying for him, he ran into his house, and he came back out with his laptop and his iPod Touch, and he threw them on the ground, and he grabbed the axe that they were using to cut firewood, and he just started destroying the iPod Touch and destroying the laptop. For him, perseverance meant taking away the thing that became the access point. For our buddy, our good buddy, Jade and I have a really good buddy, perseverance for him means when he has depressive thoughts or suicidal thoughts, he texts both of us. He said, bro, I'm struggling tonight. Can you pray for me? Perseverance looks like that. For me, it's my buddy Chris Hall, who I text when I need prayer. Buddy, I just need you to pray for me right now. Perseverance is going to look a lot like practical decisions you make every day. You know, it's one thing to worship God in this place. It's a whole other thing to follow him when all the lights are gone. Can we do a couple other areas of perseverance? You got steam for it? We got some time. Let's do it. Let's do another one. Okay, perseverance also plays out in our personal walk with Jesus. Like our personal walk. I'm talking like talking to him, walking with him, reading the Bible, prayer, spending time alone with Jesus. It takes perseverance. And that's really confusing to me. At least it was. Because I used to hear preachers talk about, man, I just love my Bible. Like, oh man, I just can't get enough. I just want to eat my Bible. It's like the best. I just like, man, my Bible every day, it's the best. And then I would go home after a conference and I'd be like, oh, I'm super lost and confused right now. You know, and they'd be like, oh man, I just can't get enough of prayer. Like, oh, man, if I just, when I leave this place, I just want to pray. When I wake up in the morning, I just want to pray. And then I would go home after a conference like this, and it was easy. I didn't feel like it took perseverance to worship God and seek him when the music was playing. I mean, and I love this. This is amazing. But then I'd go home, and I felt like maybe I was doing something wrong. Like it didn't feel easy. It felt like work. And I know it's not supposed to be work, like we're invited into a relationship, but waking up early, finding silence in the business of life, being alone with Jesus, it was hard. And I felt so guilty about this until I heard a Benedictine monk, someone who's dedicated his whole life to praying. One time I heard him speaking to a large group of pastors. And this is a guy who prays hours every day. He says, almost every morning I wake up, I don't feel like praying. And I'm like, it's not just me. And he says, so sometimes all I have the courage to do, all I have the energy to do is just to recite a familiar verse. So he goes, I just repeat like Psalm 23. The Lord's my shepherd. I don't need to fear evil. He's with me. And he goes, I just repeat it again and again and again till my soul almost wakes up to the Lord, and then I can begin to enter into prayer. And hearing him describe this took all the guilt and the shame off my shoulders. But I want to invite, and you know what, guys, can I be really honest? There are moments and seasons in my life where the word comes alive in brand new ways. And there are, every once in a while, there's moments when all I want to do is pray. And you might have experienced that before, but most days, like this afternoon, Jade and I went back to our room, super tired. And I looked over and I just wanted to watch like a TV show on Netflix, and I saw him reading a book, and I'm like, I got to be a good example for Jaden. So I went in and I grabbed my Bible, and it didn't feel easy, but I'm so thankful that I did it. And I just don't want you to ever feel guilty if it feels difficult, but I want to tell you, don't give up in doing the right thing. Don't give up in persevering in your walk with God. I mean, turn off the show, put the phone away, lay on the floor, go for a walk, say no to going out with friends. Do whatever you've got to do to get alone with God. My buddy Dallas said, at one point in time, he just decided that reading my Bible was more important than getting a good night's sleep. He said, I had to come to the conclusion that reading my Bible was more important than anything else in his life. And that's how it became a habit and a rhythm. This deep desire says, I've got to get alone with Jesus. And sometimes we sing songs and we tell stories that it should always just feel like, man, I just want to go with my feelings. So sometimes you won't feel like doing the right thing. And often the right thing is draw near to God. Because here's the thing, you are the most capable generation in all of history. You are the most connected, resource, smart generation in all of history. If there was ever a generation that could fight against poverty, that could sponsor every kid at that compassion booth, if there was ever a generation that could figure out how to raise the money, to eliminate poverty, to solve the problems, it's you. But you know what? We might not do it because we're shallow. Because we choose surface over depth. We choose comfort over cost. Man, I believe that you are a generation that can pull that off, but you might just get lulled to sleep by Instagram, by scrolling through a thread. And the Lord would say to you, don't give up in doing it. Don't just have an idea about sponsoring a kid. Just do it. It might not feel like it did when you put your hand up in the moment. It might feel like, man, I wanted to buy that shirt. And in your walk with Jesus, we must be a deep people. We must learn to pray again. We must learn to read the word again. It might feel like work, but it's worth it. We must not be a shallow people. We must be a people of God's word. We must be a people of God's presence. Could you imagine a generation that knew how loved they are by God every day walking into school? Man, I don't need the approval of others because I was on my face before the Lord this morning. And I remembered again that I'm loved by him. You see, everything around you is saying that you don't measure up. And so instead of actually fighting for the approval of God, you should fight for the approval of others. But we go to the quiet place in prayer. We open the word of God. We come before the Lord and we say, Lord, I just feel exhausted and tired, but I need you to remind me again that I'm loved by you. And I need you to remind me again what I'm called to do, that I'm called to love others. And if that's all you've got the steam to do in the morning, for me, a lot of mornings is just this. Holy Spirit, I just need your power today. I cannot pull it off without you. But could you imagine a generation of young people filled with the Holy Spirit, identity rooted in God, going out into dark places, not having to fight for the approval of others, but focused on the approval of God, how that would change our cities and our schools and our families and our streets and our workplace. That's what God is after. And the enemy does not have to convince us. The enemy doesn't have to convince us that God's not real, and he doesn't have to hurt your life like he did Job. All he has to do is distract you from being deep. Just keep it shallow. You got energy for a few more? Just two more, maybe. Let's see how we're doing for time. We need to persevere in loving others. I remember hearing a speaker named Bob Goff, and I love his books. He's got two books, Love Does and Everybody Always. And every chapter of the book is just like a really compelling story of love. And my wife and I listened to the audiobook of Everybody Always, his second book, and we listened to these amazing stories. In his two books, you hear just these incredible stories of him going to Uganda and standing up for children who were being abused and taken advantage of. And he was one of the first guys to ever put a witch doctor who was hurting children in prison. And so you read this story of him going after this kid and trying this witch doctor. And then he goes, but then I flew back again, and I went and met that witch doctor in prison, and I led him to Jesus. Then I went back again, and I started a school for witch doctors. And I went back again, and I read this story, and I said, I want to have a story like that. I want to do things like that. I know you want to do things like that. He has this story about like his neighbor being diagnosed with cancer, and so he went to Radio Shack and bought like 2-way radios, and she was alone. Her husband wasn't with her anymore. So every night before bed, he'd go, hey, this is Bob. This is Bob. Just wanted to make sure you know you're not alone. And he talks about these amazing stories of all these things that he did with her and like stepping into her life and caring for her and the difference it made in her final weeks and months of living. And I hear those stories and I say, God, I want to do that. And then I go home from conferences like this on Monday morning and I go to start the thing, and the thing that felt like a great story when I heard it summarized feels a lot like perseverance every day. When you hear the story, like I hear stories of students doing Alpha in their school. I know that the group that had that sign up earlier had run Alpha with some friends. I know a lot of you, we heard James talking about all over Calgary. Was that 37 schools are running Alpha? I mean, that's insane. I cannot believe that we just like heard that happen. But I remember when I did something like Alpha in my high school. It was called Quest, and we did this discussion group. And I remember when I would go every day to set this thing up, like the story was amazing. 60 of my friends came to this foods room to talk about Jesus and have these conversations, and this many people became Christians. And when I tell the story now, like 15 years later, it sounds awesome. But you know what it felt like when it was happening? It felt like perseverance. Like I was embarrassed to tell my friends that I was doing it. I was afraid of I remember getting made fun of for doing it. And just feeling so almost like, it just hurt so bad. And I remember walking one day in the rain, picking up chips to serve my friends, and just feeling so alone. And I don't know if it was just my own insecurities or if it was the enemy trying to discourage me or what. I just remember walking in the rain back to school being like, is this even worth it? And I'm just telling you, when it comes to loving your neighbors, man, if we want to have stories like Bob Goff, it's going to look like loving every day. Like going to that person on your sports team or in your classroom that's mean. You say, man, I'm going to try to love him to Jesus. And the first day you go and you say, hey, by the way, I just wanted to say have a good day. Who are you? Don't talk to me. Perseverance is going back the next day. Hey, it's good to see you. Back the next day, it's good to see you. It looks like sharing your lunch with somebody a day after day after day. It looks like forgive. I remember my friend Taryn in high school. She was being bullied by somebody. And she wrote a letter to them and just said, I want you to know that I love you and I pray for you. I'm a follower of Jesus. And gave her that letter, and they made fun of her. Like the amazing story is, I know how that story ends. The bully becomes a Christian and they become best friends. But when you're living that story, it feels a lot like perseverance. We need to persevere in the face of temptation. We need to persevere in our walk with Jesus. We need to persevere in loving others. And we need to persevere in praying for those that don't know Jesus. I remember being at a conference just like this, and somebody said this: pray for 3 friends every day. Make it your VIP 3. Very important prayers for very important purpose for very important people. VIP 3. The idea is this: grab 3 friends in your life that don't know Jesus and pray for them every day. And I remember writing down 3 friends. I remember the first 3 names I ever wrote down. One of those names was Jared. Remember Dunbar? And I wrote down Jared's name. I just said, I'm going to pray for him every day. I'm going to pray for him every day. And I remember the day that he came to know Jesus. I remember the day he came to know Jesus. I hoped it would have happened a lot quicker. But there's 2 other names on that list that I'm still praying for today. I remember this woman came to my church. Her name was Judy. She was a missionary from Africa. And she said that she prayed for her husband every day for 26 years before her husband became a Christian. And I made a decision as a high school student, I'm going to pray for people that long if that's what it takes. Maybe there's someone in your life that you love and you care about, and you've been praying for them to come to know Jesus. And maybe it's just fallen off the list. Don't give up in doing good. For at just the right time, you're going to reap a harvest if you don't quit. I'm planting a church with some friends in Vancouver in the next couple years, and one of the guys that I'm doing this with is my good friend Chris Price. And Chris is just an incredible leader and theologian and Bible teacher, and just I'm so excited to do this with him. But years ago, his sister was praying for him because he was out partying, getting drunk, and sleeping around and doing drugs. And as Michelle, his older sister, was praying for him, one time God gave her a vision of him standing in a room like this preaching. And nothing in the circumstances could feel further from the truth. And I asked Michelle about it. She goes, I grabbed hold of that story and I began to pray that promise every single day. Every single day. And when things look like they're at their worst, man, When everything inside of you wants to quit, that's when perseverance starts. She grabs hold of the promise. She says, I'm not going to give up. Now, at the end of the story, amazing. We see Chris doing it. But in the moment, it feels like everything is falling apart. What would happen if we became a people of perseverance? Here's how I want to end. I want to end by clearing up some potential confusion. And then I want to pray. Is that okay? I want to make a distinction between earning and effort. Earning and effort. It's a very, very important distinction. When it comes to following Jesus, we don't earn our right standing with God. We don't earn his approval. We don't earn his favor. No amount of we don't have to get our life together before Jesus accepts us. We don't earn salvation. We don't earn right standing with God. We don't earn a relationship with God. It's a gift. Every single one of you are invited to be a follower of Jesus. Free gift. Sometimes we make the mistake to think that we need to behave before we can belong. But the message of Christianity says you belong to God. You belong in the family of God. You belong first. I'm not talking about earning tonight. Hear this. I'm not talking about earning tonight, but I am talking about effort. That Christianity, it's not earning, but man, it's effort. And effort is responding to what Jesus has done. It's saying, man, he's loved me so much, I'm going to trust him with my life. Man, he persevered for me, so I'm going to persevere in my life. There's a difference between earning and effort. Okay, another way I want to clear this up, because we just need to clear up some things and we're going to pray. We're doing all right? You guys are the best. I just love spending this time with you. Another distinction. Christianity is a walk, not a ladder. Christianity is a walk, not a ladder. I used to think that Christianity was a ladder, and if you misheard what I said tonight, you might hear the kind of ladder mentality stuff. And what I mean by that is I used to think Christianity was like, man, I'm reading my Bible, I went to the conference, I lifted my hands in worship, I'm praying, I shared my faith, I sponsored a kid, I'm climbing this ladder of faith. And we even use language like this sometimes, like I'm climbing up in faith. And then what inevitably would happen to me is I would fall. I would stop reading my Bible, or I would stop praying, or I would sin and give into temptation. And remember all the things I used to battle with, and I still battle with, and I'd give up, and I'd feel like, man, I'm at the bottom of the ladder. And I go, but you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to start climbing the ladder again. So I'd be like climbing, man, God, here I go. I'm praying again. I'm reading my Bible again. And then inevitably I would fall. I would give in to temptation. I would watch something I shouldn't watch. I would say something I shouldn't say. I would choose the way of the flesh instead of the way of the spirit. And I'd fall off, and I'd feel like, man, I'm back at the bottom again. And maybe a third time or even a fourth time, I'm like, I'm going to climb again. But eventually, when you think about it as a ladder, you go, you know what? If every single time I'm climbing, I fall, it's not worth trying again. And some of you here, you've decided, like, it's not that I'm not going to follow Jesus. I'm just not going to put in an effort. But I think the problem is you think that Christianity is a ladder, but it's not. It's a walk. I love walking with my son Hudson, my daughter Mary, and Millie. And the thing about kids when you go for a walk is you hold their hand, they always fall. So I love walking with Hudson. And when he falls, I get down and say, are you all right, buddy? And we scrape off his knees and we get back up. And we keep walking. And he falls again, we get back down. All right, buddy, I got you. Even when it hurts, sometimes we have to stay down a little bit longer, but eventually we get back up and we keep walking. And I know this seems like elementary, but like when you fall on a walk, do you start at the beginning? No. Christianity is a walk, not a ladder. You're on a walk with God. You're on a journey with God. And I know that you have stumbled and you will stumble, and I stumble. You wouldn't believe how often I stumble. But what's helped me remember is it's not a ladder that I'm trying to get to the top of. It's a relationship. It's a walk that I'm on. Because no one can steal the conversations you've had with God. No matter what happens to you this year, no one can steal the moments that you've had with God in this place. The things that he's promised you, the intimacy that you've cultivated. You're not starting at the beginning. I mean, there might be a feeling of like, man, I got to dust myself up, but you're not at the beginning of the race. And so if you find yourself here next year and you're like, man, I spent the whole year floundering, that's okay. Christianity is a walk, not a ladder. It takes perseverance. You've got to get back up and keep on going, but you're not at the beginning. And some of you have been thinking, man, I'm at the beginning again. I don't want to start. I want to say, pick yourself back up. No, let me rephrase it. Let him come low, grab your hand, and pick you up, and carry on walking again. One more story to clear up some fog, and then I'm going to pray. I just need to clear this up. I just don't want us to get this wrong. So I've been spending a lot of time in the last year and a half with my friends at a place called Wagner Hills Farm in Langley. It's a recovery house, actually. It's guys who have come out of primarily alcohol and drug addiction, some of them coming out of porn addiction and other things like that. But it's an addiction center. It's really unique in that it's really intense. It's a working farm. They all have really great jobs, like keeping bees or all these different cool stuff they do on the farm. They work really, really hard. And there's counseling, and there's care, and there's worship, and there's prayer. It's just an amazing environment. And I love going there. They have a service on Thursday nights, and Jaden and I have gone to lead worship and to pray and to preach to them, and we just love spending time with them. And the reason why I love it so much is no one in the room is pretending they've got their life together. It's one of the things that I don't like about how we do Christianity. Sometimes we're just so good at pretending, but there you can't pretend because it's like, I've checked myself into this recovery center. I can't pretend I've got my life together. But there's something I learned from them that I think makes sense of the Christian life for me that I never understood before. That there is a letting go of doing it on your own strength that's not giving up. There's a letting go of following Jesus on your own strength that's not giving up. So for these guys, them going to a recovery center, is that giving up? No way. It's the opposite of giving up. They're like, I want to be a good dad for my kids. I want to follow the way of Jesus. I want to know God. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving into addiction. I'm not giving up. They're like, no, I'm not giving up. But when they come in, they're saying, I can't do this on my own. They're letting go. They're not giving up. That's the opposite of giving up. They're like, I'm going to keep on going. I'm not letting this addiction, this habit, steal the potential of my life. God has a call on my life. I'm meant to make a difference in this world. I'm not going to give into this addiction. I'm letting go of trying to do this on my own. I need help. I can't do this alone. And that is the Christian walk. There is a trying to follow Jesus on your own strength that is fundamentally different than following Jesus by leaning on the power of the Holy Spirit. There is a letting go, and it's okay to let go. Some of you need to let go tonight. You feel like, man, I don't know if I've got the steam to persevere any longer, and I want to tell you it's okay to let go. God, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need your power. Letting go might be talking to a friend from your youth ministry, your youth pastor, a friend you came with. Letting go might be like, man, can I be honest with where I'm at? I know it might look on the outside like I've got it together, but I'm a wreck inside. Letting go might look like coming tonight and saying, God, I just need your power to go with me. I can't go back to my school. I cannot go back to my home. I can't go back without your power. God, I don't think I can do the things I need to without your power showing up. I need help. I'm letting go, but I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing in the towel. There is a letting go that's not giving up. And if we can learn the art of letting go, of doing it on our own strength, but not giving up, that's what it means to follow Jesus. That's what it means to follow the narrow path. Jesus leads there. It's a new life. It's a whole new life. It's a good life. It's a full life. It's not a life we earn. He's purchased it for us. He puts us in there. And in this life, we can know the joy of following God as we persevere together. Let me pray. God, thank you so much for these minutes together. Just as we take this moment to be still and to reflect, I just wonder what the areas in our life where we are persevering or need to learn to persevere. And God, I just don't want to leave this room without doing the business that you want to do in our hearts. So for everyone listening, just in the stillness of this moment, can I just invite you to make a really simple prayer between you and God? Just say, hey, God, I'm just open to you speaking to me tonight. I'm open to your conviction. I'm open to whatever you want to do in my life, just between you and God. Just say, God, what is an area of my life that you want to draw my attention to? Maybe you're here tonight and you just feel like, Jay, I want to let go. I'm not giving up, but I feel like I need to let go of trying to do this on my own strength. I'm exhausted. Just tell the Lord that. Say, God, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like I'm winning. I don't want to give up, but I need to let go of doing this on my own strength. I don't know if this feels comfortable for you, but sometimes I open up my palms just out in front of me because our hands are so often a symbol of our heart, and maybe a symbol of letting go is just this like, God, I just need you. It's such a vulnerable position, before God. Just palms open, just say, God, I need your strength. I don't have anything to bring, just myself. I'm letting go of trying to do this on my own strength, but I'm not giving up. Holy Spirit, for everyone here saying they're letting go but not giving up, would you come in power and fill them with power from on high? God, they would know that they're not alone. God, you would give them a vision to persevere and the power in your Spirit to go after it. Fill them with your love and your power. In Jesus' name, amen.